And welcome back to Chicago Bulls Insider. Today, we are talking about an NBA executive poll that weighs in on Josh Giddey and his contract situation. And so, before we go ahead and we jump into it, I first want to remind you to slam dunk on that subscribe button, just like Modest Buzelis slam dunks in games. And so, in exchange for slamming on that subscribe button, I'm going to give you nothing but daily content around the Chicago Bulls. Make sure that you hit that like, you hit that subscribe, and you join the Chicago Bulls Insider family as we talk nothing but Chicago Bulls basketball. So with that being said, let's go ahead and let's jump into it. And so if you have not got a chance to see this article came out on The Athletic yesterday. And within this article, it is surveying 16 executives. And so they weigh in on various, questions here regarding Josh Giddey, which we're going to jump into that in a moment. So we're going to talk about the numbers and the things that were mentioned in the article. And then we're going to be talking about what a good offer should look like here with Josh Giddey and what it would look like for the Chicago Bulls. And so let's go ahead and let's jump into key point number one here. And so within this article, the first thing that it mentions before we even jump to the numbers here is that it says that out of the four remaining restricted players, Giddey inspired the most consistent contract suggestions. And it says that respondents were most comfortable giving him the money. And so the first thing that is brought up here in this article is it says that 14 of the 16 participants proposed an average annual salary between 20 million and 25 million. His mean average yearly value in the poll came to 22.3 million a year. One executive had him down for 18 million, and then it has another executive that had him down at 12.5 million, which is less than the mid-level exception, which is wild here. But that just kind of lets you know where everybody was at here. And so it looks like that the average there was 22.3 million a year. And so the next thing that came up within this article is it's talking about the amount of years to give Josh Giddey here. And so it looks like that everybody pretty much was on the 4-year boat here. And so it says this in the article. It says that 78 free agents have signed contracts this offseason as of this past weekend. Only 3 of them, the Milwaukee Bucks, Miles Turner, Minnesota Timberwolves, Naz Reid, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Sam Merrill, and then also to the Atlanta Hawks, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, received at least 4 guaranteed seasons. And it says, for reference, 13 free agents signed 4 or 5-year contracts last season. So talking about that, front offices really, want to avoid these aprons and things like that, and just definitely go ahead and stay, financially, flexible as far as kind of moving forward with their roster or whatnot. But it does say that, look, executives were definitely in on going ahead and giving Josh Giddey a 4-year. In fact, one of the quotes here is it says that if you're offering a 4-year contract, you have to be correct, said one executive, who then cut himself off and said, but Giddey, you could offer a 4-year deal to. And it said that Giddey is the anomaly because he might be good enough to be a 4-year player. The executive said nobody wants to go with long-term contracts because everybody wants this idea of flexibility. You have the ability to say, you know what, my team's not very good, let's pivot. And so those are just some of the quotes here, leading into the numbers. And so as far as the poll here, on the 4-year situation, and so it looks like that 7 of the 16 participants proposed a 4-year deal for him. One at 50 million, you had one at 80 million, one for 88 million, and then you had 4 for 100 million. It also says that 3 more suggested 5-year contracts, one for 112.5 million. You had one for 115 million, and then the largest one, both in money and average annual value, was for 125 million. And so that just kind of lets you know, where they were at as far as the 4-year, and then also to let you know where they're at here. It's speaking on the 5-year option. And so next, I guess when they're asked here about a possible 3-year situation here for Josh Giddey, this is what it said here. And so it said that one executive proposed a 3-year contract for Giddey, but with a team option, a move that would sustain flexibility for the Bulls. And then it says that 5 other executives suggested a 3-year guarantee for Giddey. It said that the executive with the lowest offer proposed a $54 million. And then it says every other 3-year contract was within the same range. So it says 60 million, 66 million, 67.5 million, and 2 for 75 million. And so that kind of gives you, just an outlook as to what these executives were looking at if they were looking, I believe, at a 3-year contract here. And so the next point that it talks about here is it does mention Patrick Williams. And I thought that this quote was interesting because we've been talking about Patrick Williams here the last couple days. I know we were talking about the rebuild and everything, but this is what was mentioned in this article about Patrick Williams here. And so it says that Chicago gave Williams 5 years, 90 million with a player option. One executive said he didn't show much and got that deal entirely based on them drafting him top 5 and his perceived potential. And so this was going after the point where it says that Giddey can use the Bulls' past actions against them, to specifically the contract they handed to the former number 4 draft pick, Patrick Williams, who was in a similar situation last season. And so, that is the point that it makes here with Patrick Williams. And then lastly, with Josh Giddey, it says that the highest average annual value suggested for Giddey in the poll was 25 million, but that also was the most common one. It said that 7 participants proposed contracts worth 25 million a year, in part because the Bulls could go ahead and accommodate that much. It says that Chicago is nearly 40 million below the luxury tax at the moment. All right, and so those were the key points out of the article here. And so let's go into now, just with that being said, where we're at with the contract here for Josh Giddey. And so, last time we heard the update, it sounds like that Josh Giddey wants 30 million, or at least we keep hearing that with his camp. We're hearing that the Chicago Bulls are dug in at 20 million. And then we've been hearing here now in this particular article where the executives are. And so I'm right at about 25 million. I think that 25 million is the sweet spot here to get a deal done. And I think the real question is going to be the years, because now if you're saying it's 4 years at 25 million, you're looking at 100 million. If you say it's 5 years at 25 million, then that's going to be $125 million for him. Now, that does fall short of his 150 that he is looking for. We have talked about this with restricted free agency, that it has been tough out there. And we're going to see, what happens, because I do think that once the first restricted free agent is taken care of, you're probably going to see everybody else get taken care of. But let's see what happens. I did see that, whatever Jonathan Kuminga was looking for was definitely off what Golden State offered him. And so, with Josh Giddey, I think that this is a different situation, because we've talked about this a lot, that AK definitely, I think, wants Josh Giddey back. I think that Josh Giddey wants to be with the Chicago Bulls. And we've been talking about really how this offense has been designed for him to definitely go out there and maximize his skill set. And so, with AK and his plan to really build out this team, get younger, get faster and things like that, Josh Giddey certainly fits it. And I just think that with the contract that you're looking at with the 25 million, I think that that's something that doesn't necessarily tie the Chicago Bulls up as far as financially. AK has talked about how they want to be players here in the market in next year's free agency because of the salary cap that they're expected to have. And so we'll see how that plays out. But bottom line here is that if AK values Josh Giddey, he wants him out there with his young core, and he wants to continue to build, then he's going to have to try to find a way to get a deal done. Like I said before, I think ultimately these two sides are going to get something done, because there has been no team that's come up and offered him an offer sheet. There has been no team that has come up and done or asked for a sign and trade. So that hasn't come out either. And so at this point in time, I think going back to this Patrick Williams situation, I think that the Chicago Bulls really have learned from their past negotiation, because when they did just hand Patrick Williams that contract like that, they really bid against themselves. And so at this point in time, the Bulls can be patient here. I think that, they are going to get something done to where he doesn't have to go into the qualifying offer. And if he does go into the qualifying offer, I think that this would be not good, because I think from that point on, yes, he's playing under the qualifying offer, but he cannot be traded because he can essentially veto trade. So he can be traded, but he could veto them. And then, when you think about that, after he comes out of that restricted free agency, he essentially is going to be open to the market. And so you have no more restricted free agency. And, if he has to go into the qualifying offer, feelings probably hurt there. And so the chances of you bringing him back probably maybe not that high. And then you'd have to look back just a couple moves to get him. You traded Alex Caruso to get him. You didn't get any picks. And then for him to actually leave in free agency, if that were to happen, I think would be a bit of a disaster for the Chicago Bulls. But again, we're not there, but I do think that something gets done. I'm right at 25 million. And so you guys let me know in the comments here, does Josh Giddey get 30 million a year? He's looking for that 30 million. And so is he looking for the 5 for 30 at 150 million? That would put him right into the ballpark of where Jalen Suggs is at. Do you feel like that a 4 for 25 is going to get it done? Do you feel like 5 for 25 is going to get it done? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And look, as we always say out there, go Bulls, and I will see you guys on the next one. All right, peace.